Hello, and welcome. You have found your way to Sleepy Stories. These are not tales of sudden fright or sharp alarm. They are ghost stories told slowly, unhurriedly, with a gentle cadence of candlelight moving against stone. They are not written to keep you alert, but to let your eyelids soften, your breath lengthen, and your thoughts loosen, like knots patiently untying themselves. Tonight, we step back into the world of the Tudors. It was an age of splendour and shadow. Think of velvet gowns whose colours drink the lamplight, pearl-stitched sleeves that gleam like small moons, ruffs that sit around the neck like a quiet cloud. Think of men in doublets stiff with embroidery, their rings catching the firelight with tidy sparks. Think of tapestries that show gardens no winter can harm, and floors of oak that remember every footfall. Tonight, as we gather beside a great Tudor fire burning in a hearth, I will share 3 hauntings. The first is a lady who walks a long gallery, richly dressed and undecided, as if her mind still weighs a choice between doors. The second is a cook who keeps her kitchen even after the fires are cold, her invisible hand measuring spice, her ear catching rumours without ever repeating them. The third is a boy who polishes armour in the great hall, his cloth moving endlessly across steel as though to keep loyalty bright against suspicion. As you listen, there is nothing you must do, and nothing you must decide. There is no letter to carry, no dish to present, no armour to shine, no storm to endure. You may simply rest as these Tudor ghosts continue their quiet, careful work. And as their stories unfold, you may find your thoughts smoothing, your breath evening, and your eyes closing of their own accord, as if the lids were tapestries and the night were drawing them gently over the window of the world. The Tudors was an age of appetite. Great tables, long enough to hold a small village of platters. Roasted meats brought in with gravity and pride. Marchpane kneaded with sugar and rose water until it consented to become hedgehogs and castles. Custards trembling in their bowls with the modesty of good company. Goblets of Hippocras passed from hand to hand, wine coaxed into gentleness by cinnamon, ginger, and honey. And like all ages, the Tudor years were an age of weather. Winds that pressed their palms upon leaded windows and left the diamonds of glass to shiver softly in their frames. Rain that walked the roofs of great houses like careful drummers. Thunder that made the beams talk to one another in the language of old wood. Lightning that lit the hall for an instant, and then remembered itself, and left the darkness to its work. Between splendour and storm there were whispers. Whispers of favour and disfavour, of loyalty carefully arranged like cutlery, of treason spoken so softly it seemed not to have been spoken at all, and yet had the weight to sink a life. Corridors learned to carry secrets. Galleries learned to muffle them. The very staircases knew how to accept a quiet footfall and keep the news to themselves. What remains now is not the panic of those whispers, but their echo, gentled by time, folded into rooms that prefer order. The ghosts we meet tonight are not here to frighten you. They are like portraits that continue to watch without judgment, like a scent of nutmeg that lingers after the pie is gone. They are presences made of habit, orderly, patient, polite. The gallery breathes, the kitchen listens, the hall keeps its counsel. The room approves of unhurried choices. Nothing demands, nothing hurries, nothing insists. Breath finds its count, footsteps find their measure, and even the storm, which enjoys opinions, concedes the wisdom of going slowly. If there was once a letter to carry, it can wait until morning. But if there was once a duty to perform, it will arrive again of its own accord. For now, the house suggests kindness to the hands, to the eyes, to the thoughts that prefer to fold themselves like linen. And now to our first story, the Lady of the Long Gallery. The Tudors loved their long galleries. They were corridors, yes, but also stages, places to walk when the weather disliked company, places to show tapestries and portraits, places where footsteps could measure thought. Imagine one now. The floor is oak, waxed to a mild glow. The panelled walls give back a soft reflection of candle flames. Overhead, carved beams hold the roof in a patient embrace. Along one side, tall windows of leaded glass run like a line of small lakes. Beyond them, the night is stitching itself together with rain. Along the opposite wall, portraits keep watch. A gentleman with a ring on his forefinger, his beard sharp as a quill. A lady in a gown the colour of midnight, her hands folded so neatly the eye relaxes at the sight. A child who holds a small dog, as if the dog were a polite secret. Their painted gazes are steady, and yet not unkind. It is here that the lady walks. Her gown is velvet, crimson in the light, wine dark in the shadows. The sleeves are slashed to show a lining of gold brocade, as if the dress were reminding itself to be bright. A ruff sits at her throat, a little miracle of folds. Her French hood rests upon her hair, its edge set with small pearls that catch the candlelight and turn it into a string of patient stars. She moves slowly, not hesitantly, but as if the past has taught her that haste is a kind of impoliteness to the room. Sometimes she clasps her hands. Sometimes she lets them fall and considers them, as if they were gentle tools and she wishes to choose the right one. Sometimes she pauses at a window. There the rain is bright enough to see. There the lightning shows, very briefly, the shapes of the orchard trees like thoughts written in ink and then blotted at once. Sometimes she pauses by a portrait and tilts her head, not in judgment but in recognition, as though the painted woman has said something she almost remembers. The townsfolk whisper that she once carried letters, that she was close to a queen, perhaps to a king as well, for the Tudors were generous with their proximity and careful with their distances. Letters may be small things, but they can be heavy. To carry one is to be trusted. To burn one is to refuse that trust. To read one is to take on more of the world than anyone can usefully hold. It is said that one letter, folded and sealed, is the reason she still walks. The seal showed boldly, as seals do. Inside, the words were quiet and difficult. Around it all, the weather pressed its hands upon the window. Deliver and risk a life. Destroy and risk another. Keep and risk everything. It is possible that indecision can be as enduring as love. The gallery understands indecision and does not hurry her. When the storm lifts its voice, the windows tremble. The tapestries stir a little, their woven leaves remembering how leaves behave outdoors. The candles bow, then practice standing again. Through it all, the lady moves at a pace, unstartled, unstartling, a lesson in how to be present without demanding attention. She is not a ghost who vanishes rudely. She does not dissolve like sugar in wine. Instead, she fades as a candle fades when the wick has taught the flame restraint. Her outline softens. Her pearls are the last to surrender the light. The velvet returns to being merely a patch of particular darkness. And then there is only the gallery with its portraits and its windows and its long opinion of time. If you were to sit upon the bench at the turning of the gallery, there is always a bench, and it is always a little too hard. You might find that the storm's rhythm, the lady's footsteps, and your breathing gradually become one thing. The body likes such agreements. The mind approves of them even more. And in that accord, you may feel the polite weight of sleep sit down beside you, nodding to the portraits as if to ask permission, which is granted at once. In another life, perhaps the lady wore a gown the colour of spring leaves and danced at court, careful not to tread on anyone's future. Perhaps she tasted marchpane shaped like a crown, and bit into it with suitable humility. Perhaps she wore on her sleeve a favour given by a person whose favour mattered too much. Perhaps she knew how a whisper can be as loud as a bell in the right hallway. If such things once taught her caution, they teach her grace now. By walking slowly and without conclusion, she gives everybody else permission to stop deciding for a while. The Tudors were very good at deciding. The gallery is better at postponing. Outside, the weather tries out its repertoire. Rain in long, steady lines, then in soft commas, then in impatient dots. Wind that hums at a single window pane, as if tuning itself. A pause that invites thunder, and then thunder that takes the invitation and enters like a guest who has remembered to wipe his boots. The lady continues her small pilgrimage. If she thinks of treason, she thinks of it the way a seamstress thinks of a snag. Something to be handled with care and kept from spreading. If she thinks of love, she thinks of it the way a gardener thinks of weather. Helpful, unhelpful, and rarely in one's control. If she thinks of sleep, she thinks of it as a room everyone is welcome to visit eventually. Toward the far end of the gallery hangs a portrait of a queen, stiff-laced, stern-mouthed, bright-eyed. The painter has given the eyes that particular concentration which refuses to blink. When the lady passes it, she inclines her head, not in fear but in acknowledgement. Some say the Queen was once the sender of a letter. Some say the Queen was the subject of it. Others that the Queen would have been kinder than her reputation suggests. The lady offers no opinion. She has learned that opinions are best kept like spices, close, and used in small amounts when they improve the dish. At last, the storm tires of its own eloquence. The windows return to their usual silence. The candles grow steadier. The tapestries rest. The portraits continue their alert patience. And the lady, who has been walking so long that the floor knows the exact distance between her steps, softens into the air and is gone. The gallery does not feel emptier for her absence. It feels, if anything, tidier, like a sentence that has found its period and is content to let the meaning settle. If you have been listening, you may already be sleeping. If you are not, draw the air into your lungs as if it were warm linen. Let it out again as if you were laying that linen flat. Let your hands rest as hers sometimes do, undecided but untroubled. Along the gallery the portraits practice patience. The room approves of unhurried choices. Nothing demands, nothing hurries, nothing insists. Breath finds its count. Footsteps find their measure. And even the storm, which enjoys opinions, concedes the wisdom of going slowly. If there was once a letter to carry, it can wait until morning. If there was once a duty to perform, it will arrive again of its own accord. For now, the house suggests kindness. To the hands, to the eyes to the thoughts that prefer to fold themselves like linen. And now, on to our second story, the cook of the great kitchen. Below the polite rooms and the discussing paintings lies the kitchen, the working country of the house. The ceiling is high, the beams are smoked to a deep brown from years of good labour. Hooks hang like notes on a stave. From them, copper and iron sing quietly to themselves. The flagstones have been persuaded by so many feet that they have softened into gentle curves, the kind that turn clatter into a shuffle. Here the cook remains. She is not a clanker of pans, nor a thrower of knives. She is the sort of presence that arranges a ladle so it dries correctly, the sort that tucks a cloth over the edge of a bowl because the bowl prefers modesty. She is a believer in order as a form of love. In her day, the kitchen knew what it was to put splendour on a table. The ledger, still tucked in a drawer that sticks and then relents, records practical miracles. Flour, almond, sugar, rosewater, marchpane, to be shaped as hedgehogs for the amusement of children and ambassadors. Venison, lamb, beef, to be persuaded into pies whose crusts could hold a crest and a conversation. Fish days kept with good grace, sauces that make a river generous. Fowl, goose with sage, capon with quince. Peacock returned to its own colours for the sake of an exclamation. Sweets. Custards that tremble like small courtesies. Fritters dusted with sugar like the first shy snow. On evenings of weather the kitchen seems to inhale. The old hearth, though dark, remembers warmth. The air tastes faintly of nutmeg, as if the stone itself had acquired a palate. In one corner, a rolling pin rests where a hand has just, or centuries ago, placed it with finality. On the table, a scatter of flour that is not really there is nonetheless there enough to catch lamplight. A spoon leans against a bowl that has not contained anything since before you were born, and yet the spoon leans with intent. Sometimes there is a sound as small as the kindness it implies, the ring of wood on the rim of a pot, the soft encouragement of a knife setting itself at a safer angle, the tiny thump of a jar deciding it be closer to the person who will need it. The cook is tidy in her afterlife, as she was in her life. She has the gift all good kitchen souls share. She can do several helpful things, without insisting you notice any of them. As for treason, if such a sharp word must be brought into a room whose business is comfort, the kitchen learned to hear without repeating. Notes could be tucked beneath trenchers. A message could be hidden in a loaf, sent out warm, its code snug among the crumbs. Names were held in the steam above a pot long enough to be softened and made digestible. The cook's ledger does not report plots. It reports bay leaves, which are wiser than plots. In the margin of one winter's page there is a sentence faint with time. The air is uneasy. Add mace. Whether this improved the stew or the century is not recorded. When royalty was expected, the kitchen conducted itself like a chapel that knows the hymn and sees no reason to rush it. Apprentices chopped with a steadiness that would have pleased any monarch. Meat was turned not with flair, but with sincerity. The cook tasted and adjusted, tasted and nodded, tasted and smiled once, briefly, as if to herself, because the balance had been found. There is power in balance. The Tudors often looked for it in laws and found it in soups. On Twelfth Night the scent of almond returns as if it had never been away. Marchpane Castle walls are pressed in moulds that remember nimble hands. A sugar rose opens its petals without hurry. Hippocras is strained through cloth that was folded and put away last year, and expected by everyone to be precisely where it has always been, and it is. The ghost ensures these continuities, not by making sweets for the living, but by keeping the idea of sweets ready in the room. If you leave a small dish upon the sill, empty and clean, it may be turned by morning, as if a portion were imagined for it. If you leave a knife on the table, with its edge pointing unkindly outward, it will be found pointing in, apologetic and safer. If you leave flour unbagged, you will find the bag's lip tucked in as kindly as a child is tucked at bedtime. The cook does not interfere. She improves. Storms are soothed here. While the wind lowers itself against the shutters and considers pushing, the kitchen decides that pushing is unseemly. The house listens. You may feel the muscles in your shoulders unwind, as if you too had chosen the better angle for the spoon. And if you're awake to it, you might hear a voice no louder than a whisk. Gently. It could be to the batter. It could be to the heart. It could be to the night itself. Christmas returns with its certain step. The ledger grows generous at the edges of December. Candied peel, comfits, ale that is to be mulled, spices to be used bravely and then put away politely. The ghostly cook would never scandalise a stomach. She seasons sleep as she once seasoned stews, enough to comfort, never to shout. If a whisper of conspiracy should wander through the scullery, even now when conspiracies prefer other rooms, it is likely to find itself rearranged by the simple fact of washing up. Treason lacks stamina when confronted with warm water and a brisk cloth. Most mischief does. The cook's greatest political act is that the bowls are always, eventually, clean. In the kitchen, the spoons and ladles prefer agreements to arguments. The room approves of unhurried choices. Nothing demands, nothing hurries, nothing insists. Breath finds its count. Footsteps find their measure. And even the storm, which enjoys opinions, concedes the wisdom of going slowly. If there was once a letter to carry, it can wait until morning. If there was once a duty to perform, it will arrive again of its own accord. For now, the house suggests kindness. To the hands, to the eyes, to the thoughts that prefer to fold themselves like linen. Last, but by no means least, is our third ghost story, the boy with the armour. The great hall is the house's theatre. Even when empty, it contains an audience. The suits of armour along the wall, waiting like patient actors who have learned every line and enjoy the silence between performances. The ceiling arches high and dark. The banners, if there are any, hang with the serenity of old fabric that has long since stopped trying to impress and has settled into the role of being seen. Here the boy keeps vigil. In a world that measured loyalty with fine instruments and sometimes with coarse ones, shining the Lord's armour was not merely tidy, it was sensible. Rust can be a metaphor, if you allow it. It is not wise to allow it. The boy did not. He understood that a breastplate which reflects a candle tells one story, and a breastplate that scowls with dullness tells another. He preferred the first. He was given beeswax and soft cloths and patient hours. He liked the patient hours best. They felt like something a person could own without owing anyone for them. He polished in small circles, the way care often proceeds. He breathed steadily, the way good work demands. He looked up now and then at the door in case a person of rank should appear without warning. If one did, he bowed in a way that was respectful to rank, and also to the cloth in his hand, which had its own authority. It is said that Henry once dined here, the king being fond of dining everywhere he could. The hall would have tried on its best behaviour like a well-cut coat. The boy's hands would have been busy long before dawn, and undecided about stopping long after midnight. His task was to make the steel so bright that it could not be mistaken for anything but readiness. Readiness, like loyalty, is easier to prove when it gleams. Now the hall is quiet, and the boy's hands have gone the way of all hands, and yet the armour shines as if it had attended a lesson it enjoyed. On nights when the weather performs, there is the sound that belongs only to cloth meeting steel, not quickly, not slowly, exactly as long as the metal needs in order to consider shining and then agree. If a gauntlet was a little to the left last evening, it is a little to the right this morning, as if a small debate has been settled. If a candlestick had leaned a degree toward mischief, it is upright again. If a helmet had frowned, it now looks surprised, as many helmets do when they are clean. The boy is not much seen. Perhaps there is the impression of someone kneeling. Perhaps there is a patch of air that looks for a moment like diligence. Perhaps there is only the faint, good smell of beeswax, the smell that suggests both industry and contentment. The hall appreciates both. There were years when the word treason bruised the air. Men muttered it, denied it, accused it, survived it, and did not. The boy learned a policy which has guided many wise souls. When politics looks at you, you may look at your work. He kept his eyes on the steel. Loyalty, he found, can be practiced with a cloth. If there is a moral here, it is a quiet one. When banners lift in a draught, the armour thinks briefly of marching and then declines. The storm outside rehearses its lines against the stone. The stone refuses to be impressed. The boy continues. The hall, like a cat that has remembered warmth, tucks its great body into a curve of comfort and pays him the honour of not interrupting. Visitors have noticed an odd courtesy in the arrangement of things. A chair angled to admit a tired back. A stool placed where a knee can accept it. A poker leaned in a way that discourages the wrong hand from grasping the hot end. These are not military triumphs, but they are the victories a house needs in order to keep from quarrelling with itself. The boy seems to understand that peace is made from such small treaties. If you stand near the dais and look down the length of the hall, you will see the suits in perspective. Tallest near, smallest far, each holding a private seriousness. You may imagine the king's beard at the head of a long table. You may imagine a queen whose eyes do not forget. You may imagine the talk that was treason yesterday and policy tomorrow. Then let those pictures fold themselves and be put away. The boy is busy. He is teaching steel to be kind again. From time to time a sigh is heard that does not belong to the weather. It is not sad. It is the sound a task makes when it notices it is being done properly. If all sighs were such, the world would be easier. The hall believes this and is therefore an optimist. By degrees the storm grows polite. It withdraws from the windows and lets the glass be itself. The banners recollect their patience. The suits stand exactly as they have always stood, which is to say nobly, and also like furniture that has made its peace with staying in one place. And the boy, who has proved that diligence can be its own sleep, sets down the cloth you cannot see and rests in the brightness he has made. In the hall, steel learns gentleness under a small cloth. The room approves of unhurried choices. Nothing demands, nothing hurries, nothing insists. Breath finds its count. Footsteps find their measure. And even the storm, which enjoys opinions, concedes the wisdom of going slowly. If there was once a letter to carry, it can wait until morning. If there was once a duty to perform, it will arrive again of its own accord. For now, the house suggests kindness. To the hands, to the eyes, to the thoughts that prefer to fold themselves like linen. And so the Tudor house settles. The gallery is long and no longer urgent. The kitchen is orderly and no longer hot. The hall is high and no longer watchful. Above, the lady continues her quiet choosing. Below, the cook continues her quiet kindness. In the hall, the boy continues his quiet proof that care is a kind of light. The Tudors knew how to be splendid. They knew how to be hungry and how to be fed. They knew how to be afraid in ways that used large words. And they knew how to be comforted by small ones. Yes, please, thank you, gently. They wore velvet because velvet pleases the hand. They drank spiced wine because spice pleases the night. They walked galleries because weather pleases itself. They learned, some of them, that treason is another name for weather, and that loyalty can be a half. You do not need to decide anything now. The letter can wait, the stew can simmer, the armour can shine without you. The storm will pass whether or not you listen. The ghosts will keep their habits whether or not you see them. Your only work is the easiest kind, to rest as you are, to let the bed accept you, to let breath become a small tide that carries you out and brings you in. If you hear the faintest knock, tock, tock, it is the maid from another house reminding you that doors like to be acknowledged. If you smell nutmeg, it is the cook improving the season. If you catch the shine of steel, it is the boy making sure the room is brave. If you hear nothing at all, it is the best kind of company. Close your eyes. Let the ruff become a cloud that supports the throat of the night. Let the velvet become darkness that has remembered to be soft. Let the banners become slow rivers. Let the rain become 1,000 small hands that pat the roof and tell it what a good roof it is. Let the portraits keep their watch, so you do not have to keep yours. Good night. Rest easy. Sleep. And let the Tudors take a turn at wakefulness. They are very good at shifts. They will not mind. Let sleep arrive as slowly as a courteous visitor who wipes its feet and leaves its worries at the door. Let it sit beside you, not across from you. Let it speak only in the language of warmth. If, before sleep takes you, a question wonders whether it must be answered tonight, let the night answer on your behalf. Not now, not urgently, not at all. There is time enough for choosing. There is time enough for light. For this hour, there is only the soft permission to rest. Sleep gathers its tools, a hush for the corners, a blanket for the thoughts, a small lamp to place outside the door, in case a dream needs gentle guidance. You are looked after. The house is looked after. The night will keep watch. If you are still awake, you may listen again, or explore more stories in the future. If you are asleep, then all is well. If you enjoyed yourself and found yourself soothed, then click subscribe for more sleepy stories. Good night once more. Good night to velvet and oak, to nutmeg and steel, to storms that remember their manners, and to ghosts who remember their tasks. When morning comes, it will come on its own. For now, let night complete its work. Sleep well,